Good evening, friends. This evening session is dedicated to class 9, 10, 11, 12. Particularly, I'm going to talk about poetic device, particularly the figures of speech, why and how they are important and how to understand them. Actually, what happens that one or two marks questions always comes in the exam, particularly related to poetic device. Poetic device means the figures of speech, the decorative words and language that the poet uses or creates in between his composition just to adorn the beauty of expression. So we have to understand some of the poetic device that are often used in the day to day, poetic composition. Children must identify between the difference between simile and metaphor. For instance, simile and metaphor, there is a little difference. Simile is defined as a poetic device in which there is a direct comparison between two unlike objects using the words like or as. Similarly, he fought like a lion in the battle. Here, he has been compared to a lion, and the word which have been used for comparing are like. So, death lays her icy hands. So that is a metaphor. Icy hands. Here it is actually, there is indirect comparison. So it is an implied simile. Death lays her icy hand on rich or poor equally. Shakespeare says, death lays her icy hands on rich or poor equally. So here, icy hands is metaphor, the hand which is signifying the end of life, that is death. So metaphor is defined as an implied simile, and there is no word like or as. Like you can say the cloudy sky. Here the cloudy sky is a metaphor. The same thing can be transformed in simile, like the sky was as dark as cloud. Now it is simile. So in simile there is a direct comparison between two unlike objects, and in metaphor there is an indirect comparison between two unlike objects, and the comparing words are not seen in there. Like we can say that no, the cloudy sky, like that. The icy hands, death lays her icy hands, is a personification as well as metaphor. So let us talk about, because in class 9 and 10 generally the children have to refer to the poetic device from the lines of the poem. So for instance, I am taking one poem and one stanza of class 9 poem, just to make it clear how we can really define the poetic device and identify them. Like the poem is Rain on the Roof, and the stanza I am reading out, here it is. The stanza is, when the humid shadow hover over all the starry spheres, and the melancholy darkness gently weeps in rainy tears, what a bliss to press the pillow of a cottage chamber bed and lie listening to the patter of the soft rain overhead. See the rhyming scheme. Hover, sphere, darkness, tears. So the spheres, tears. Hover A, spheres B, darkness C, tears, again tears and spheres are rhyming. So B, so A, B, C, B. So the rhyme scheme that is developed now is A, B, C, B. Well, let us talk about what is the meaning of the poetic device transfer epithet. So before we go to transfer epithet, let us read out the line once again. When the humid shadows hover over all the starry spheres, and the melancholy darkness gently weeps in rainy tears, what a bliss to press the pillow of a cottage chamber bed and lie listening to the patter of the soft rain overhead. Now, first of all, you ask, sir, what does this stanza mean? The poet says that the stars of the sky are not visible when the dark clouds cover the night. What happens? Whenever the dark clouds cover the night, the stars of the sky are invisible. They are not visible to our eyes. Whenever dark clouds cover the night sky. The stars in the sky are not at all visible. Then what happens? Then he, stares that. Then he looks at the, stars, but they are not visible. Then the poet says, he states that darkness is making him sad and reflective. What makes the poet sad and reflective? Darkness. The darkness that has covered the entire sky and made, the stars invisible, that really saddens the mood of the poet. The poet is suddenly saddened, so he becomes melancholy and reflective. The rain symbolizes the release of sadness and the ushering of the joy. What does the rain symbolize? The release of sadness and the ushering of the joy. At one hand, the rain, falling of the rain, releases all the sadness from the poet's mind. On the other hand, it brings back joy to his mind. So the two work the rain is doing at the same time. And then what happens? The rain makes us getting nostalgic. We fall into the childhood memories and so become nostalgic. We start recollecting the memories of our childhood. That is very, very joyous. And then we start recollecting all those happenings of our childhood, sitting comfortably in our bed or sleeping comfortably on our bed. Lying in the bed, we start becoming nostalgic, recollecting all the beautiful memories of our childhood. And therefore, we keep on releasing the wonderful music of the rain as it falls upon the roof. And the pattering sound of the rain makes us recollect the beautiful memories of our childhood, and thereby we fall into nostalgic dream. The fantasy of the childhood comes before our eyes and we get completely nostalgic to those childhood memories. So now how we are going to relate this to the poetic device? Look at that. In the first two lines, when the poet says that the dark clouds have completely covered the sky, and so the night has completely become dark. The night is darkened because of the clouds that has covered the stars of the sky, and therefore now here the sudden change of mood of the poet, sudden falling of the rain changes the poet's mood from sadness to happiness. So this is called transport epithet. So the line in the first stanza, when the poet says that he is the melancholy darkness gently weeping in rainy tears. The rainy tears means the falling of the rains like tears makes him suddenly change his mood from melancholy means sadness to happiness, and that is what we call transport epithet. So transport epithet is a poetic device in which there is a transfer of mood from the poet to some other object. The poet's sadness is transferred from himself to that of the night. The night has been now saddened and it is cloudy. Second stanza, second line, third line, amid shadows over the over is a reflection of the haunting memories of the poet's childhood. So here also we find a certain transfer of feelings, and that is what we call transfer epithet. Now come to personification. In stanza 1, the poet says, and the melancholy tears gently weeps in rainy tears. Rainy tears. The rain has been personified as human being because tears are associated with the activity of human being. Human being when become grieved, a human being cry. Therefore, the personification has been done. Darkness has been personified, giving out the human ability to the shedding of the tears. So the shedding of the tears by darkness is just like the human activity performed, and that is why it is being personified. So there is a personification. The poetic device is personification. So whenever abstract ideas are personified as human being, it is called personification. Here, the weeping of the gentle rain into tears are just the example of personification, because here the rain has been personified because it is performing the human activity such as tears. bursting into tears is an example of the rain bursting into tears is an example of personification. Similarly, there is a refrain. Refrain is the repetition of the same line or lines in the poem throughout. In the last line of the poem, it is often repeated. It is there at the end of the poem. There is an expression, the soft falling of the rain, and that has been repeated time and again in the poem. So the soft falling rain is an example of refrain. So refrain is defined as a poetic device in which a line or some lines of the poem are repeated in order to emphasize certain fact. Like here, soft falling rain has been emphasized by the poet in order to make it clear that the rain is musical, melodious, and it binds us to the beautiful memories of childhood. Therefore, we can say that refrain is a poetic device in which there is a repetition of a group of words, a line or lines in the poem, and that is meant for emphasizing